For nearly 20 years, the playoffs eluded them. No matter what the Seattle Mariners did, whether it be bringing in free agents, developing, scouting, drafting, the Mariners could not make the playoffs. Of course, that was until the year of 2022.
Boy, a lot of anxious folks out here at the ballpark. 3-2 to count. The pitch from Acevedo. A drive deep to right field. Down the line. The Mariners win this game 2-1. The dream lives. They're going to the playoffs. The drought is over. Cal Raleigh. Wow. Hey now. Hey now. Hey now.
For the first time in 2 decades, the Mariners made the playoffs thanks to one man's homer at the end of the season. And the Mariners showed it was no fluke. It was no mistake that they won and got in the playoffs. It started by taking down the Toronto Blue Jays up in Toronto with a massive playoff comeback. And after that, they advanced to the ALDS where they would face their division rival Houston Astros. Although on the scoreboard it showed a 3-0 sweep by the Astros to the Mariners, the series and the games in that series were so much closer than what the scoreboard actually showed. Game 1, the Mariners were up 7-5 in the bottom of the 9th, and then Yordan Alvarez walked off on the Mariners and Robbie Ray. And in Game 2, the Mariners were up 2-1 with Luis Castillo on the bump before Yordan Alvarez yet again hit a 2-run shot that would put the Astros on top 3-2, and the Astros would never surrender up that lead. And then in Game 3, the longest shutout in playoff baseball history, over 6 hours and 18 innings of baseball was played, where the Mariners pitching staff and bullpen went toe-to-toe with the Houston Astros, the best pitching staff in the league, before finally the Mariners surrendered the only run on a solo shot by Jeremy Pena in the top of the 18th. Although they got swept, the Mariners proved they were legit contenders, and they were serious. Now coming into the 2023 season, led by Julio Rodriguez and Teoscar Hernandez on offense with that starting lineup, one of the better bullpens in the league, and a top 10, potentially a top 5 rotation by the end of the year, the Seattle Mariners are looking to be playoff bound again, but to get further than the ALDS this time. This Mariners team is going to go as far as their starting pitching can take them. And let me tell you something. This starting rotation has the potential to take them far in the playoffs. Firstly, let's start off with Luis Castillo, a guy that has been traded for I cannot count how many times. The Mariners acquired this guy at the trade deadline last year from the Reds. Luis Castillo with the Reds was filthy, straight, nasty, filthy. But going to the Mariners, a lot of people got to saw just how nasty this guy was. Luis Castillo with his 4-seam fastball with about a 96 average velocity on it. He'll also mix a sinker with that 4th seam sometimes in there with about the same amount of velo. Luis Castillo is one of those rare guys that's not afraid to go all 4 quadrants with you. He's not one of those guys that lives at the top of the zone with high velocity or dominates glove side only. He's not afraid to attack every single quadrant of the strike zone. And if Luis Castillo gets you in a 2-strike count, the changeup's coming out. In my opinion, Luis Castillo's got one of the best 2-strike changeups in all of baseball. But what's kind of crazy is a lot of guys with high velocity like him go with the 4-seam slider mix. So the fact that he throws a changeup instead of his slider, which he does have in his repertoire, makes him all the more interesting and fun to watch. Robbie Ray won the AL Cy Young back in 2021 with the Toronto Blue Jays, and it was a little bit of a surprise in the league because before that year, Robbie Ray only had another season where he had a sub-3 ERA in his career. The season that he had, it kind of surprised everybody, but Seattle went out and signed this guy to a 5-year, $100 million contract in the 2021 offseason going into 2022. Robbie Ray is the type of pitcher that you would describe as all or nothing for every pitch. Other people would describe him as a grunter. Robbie's the type of dude that gives it all with every single pitch he throws, whether it be the 4-seam or the slider or the sinker that he likes to mix in with that 4-seam sometimes. But Robbie's stuff doesn't live with high velocity. He has a very average fastball at just under 94 miles an hour, but he likes to live at the top of the zone with that fastball, and he gets a lot of hitters out like that. He's also not afraid to come into lefties with it either. Sometimes he likes to hang those 4-seams, which we see what's happened to him in the past, but if Robbie can capture some of that 2021 magic this next season, he's going to be a nasty number 2 for the Seattle Mariners behind Luis Castillo. And finally, the Seattle Mariners' third option in their starting rotation. This guy I'm excited for the most out of any young pitcher in Major League Baseball besides maybe Christian Javier, Mr. Logan Gilbert. Now, when I first saw this guy last year pitching for the Mariners in the ALDS against my Astros, I was impressed. A tall, lengthy dude that uses his 4-seam / slider really well and effectively. With an above average velo on that fastball at 96 miles an hour on average, and a nice sweeping slider with above average rotation on it, the kid is going to be nasty for a few years to come, hopefully. My biggest hope for him is that the splitter that he just now developed will become another put away pitch for him, especially against lefties, because this kid has the potential to win a Cy Young one day, or maybe two. He's just so grotesquely disgusting, there's just not a lot of stuff to say besides that about him. Many people and fans aren't expecting the Mariners to win the AL West, but last year the Mariners came behind the Houston Astros in the AL West by 16 games. It's expected that the Mariners are going to close that gap to maybe 5 or 7 games and land up in another wild card spot. It's my firm belief that the Mariners, if they land up in that wild card spot, they could potentially make some big upsets in the playoffs, and perhaps, maybe, with an outsider's chance, be a dark horse at winning the World Series, or at least getting to it. Anyways, guys, let me know what y'all think in the comment section down below. Do y'all agree with me? Do y'all disagree with me? Do you think the Seattle Mariners starting rotation is the reason that they'll make it far in the playoffs? But anyways, guys, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new, because I have plenty more baseball content I'll be bringing you like this, and I'll see you all in the next one. Adios, mis amigos.